By now, you may have already heard of an MMO coming out this year called Throne and Liberty. Now, Throne and Liberty may be the largest MMO that we're going to be getting this year, so there's understandably some buzz growing around this game, especially with a recent kind of information dump from NCSoft in December. But the question remains, is this an MMO that you should be excited about, or should you be wary? This game's painfully long development cycle may actually be ending finally in 2023. In a year where it does not have much competition. So it really looks like 2023 could be Throne and Liberty's year to lose. But perhaps it could. Let's take a look at what Throne and Liberty is, what it's not, and whether you should be excited for this upcoming MMO from NCSoft. Throne and Liberty may feel like it has burst onto the scene because we've only just been hearing about it over the last year or so, but this game may be pushing for the longest recorded development time of any MMORPG so far. The game was first announced in November of 2011 as Lineage Eternal, a very different game than what we'll be getting with Throne and Liberty. Lineage Eternal looked to have a lot more in common with a game like Lost Ark with its top-down isometric view and what looked like timed events. A tortured development cycle and over a decade later, and we have Throne and Liberty, a game in Unreal Engine that hasn't just shed the previous iteration, but the IP as well. From the sound of each new update from NCSoft, it becomes more and more clear that this is not Lineage 3. From its seeming focus on appealing to a broad audience across the entire globe, as well as a repeated promotion of PvE as an important part of the game. But there's even more to it than that. Back in December, we got a trove of information on Throne and Liberty from the director's preview, and let's cover some of those highlights. First is the free class system, a system that will allow you to pick your role based on the weapons you equip, include weapon swapping. Yay! Weapon swapping. It's not like any MMO's done that before. Players can change weapons anytime to suit any situation, combining the two different selected weapons by swapping between them. Each weapon will offer a defensive effect that relies on timing. This seems to allude to a more action-oriented type combat, which is further insinuated by talking about micromanaging different subtle aspects of combat and connecting skills from different weapons. But perhaps the most intriguing part of this is their weather system, as they call it, a complete weather system that can change its landscape and trigger events. A living world that is about adapting to the environment with things like flooding. The preview alludes to these weather effects being in some ways controlled by players who learn the laws of them, which could add another interesting part of control over the world by the players, being able to actually alter the world in some ways, at least temporarily. And you branch out from this weather system into a dual system of predictable and unpredictable environmental challenges. Day-night cycles that allow players to plan, while unpredictable events like gusts of winds require players to adapt in the moment, as it will in fact impact gameplay. As they say, the environment is an essential part of creating small but impactful changes. They also talked up what looked to be a very cool dungeon, a seamless dungeon that will cover multiple floors. Now, this dungeon alone, the little fly-through they did that you're seeing right now on screen, it evoked a lot of interest for me. It made me want to jump into that dungeon and just see everything that has to come with it. The one concern I have with this though is that they also have a traversal system that's going to perhaps make the world feel smaller than it actually needs to be when you transform into animals and fly across the zones. This multi-level dungeon seems a little bit less interesting if you can just fly from the top to the bottom. So we'll see how they limit that animal traversal. But moving away from PvE, we need to talk about PvP and what is in Throne and Liberty. Specifically, that it is all opt-in. You will be choosing when you want to engage in PvP in Throne and Liberty. The video is clear that there is no way for players to just kind of fall into PvP. It's purely opt-in with events and competitions that take approximately 20 minutes or so, with everyone in the region able to participate. And you fight to move up in rank. PvP is further incentivized through guild wars, which take place fighting over something called possession stones, which provide benefits to guilds including procurement of raw materials. So it sounds like PvP will have plenty of incentive, but it will not be something that is going to be pervasive in the world and preventing you from enjoying your PvE if that is what you want to do. Next, of course, the game is just looking gorgeous. We already knew that from some of the other videos, but with the December preview, we got even more footage showing more biomes and sweeping vistas and landscapes, as well as delving into exciting multi-level dungeons that look like they have different ways to traverse them, delving deep down into incredible cave systems. This game is promising to be a very pretty and visually engaging game, perhaps even challenging games that are already gorgeous like Black Desert Online. It may be one of the biggest things it has going for it is the pretty incredible looking aesthetics. But they're also talking about this game not being hollow. Story is an important part of the game. They nod to the importance of player-created history while also talking up the need for strong world building. It's hard to tell from the description from the video if there'll be a chosen one type plot like, say, Final Fantasy XIV, or a more open world expanding narrative more like with, say, older MMOs like EverQuest. With the talk of heartfelt stories, it could honestly go either way, with individual quests adding to the lore of the world or a full-on story where you take center stage. I personally am going to be hoping for the open world narrative where each individual interaction is important, but I am not the center of the world because that just, for me, doesn't work in MMOs, but I know tons of people that do greatly like that story, the RPG part of an MMO, specifically the Chosen One.
You are the Chosen One!
With these recent updates on Throne and Liberty, my interest is piqued. Bit by bit, as we've learned more and more about Throne and Liberty, I've become more intrigued. The game is sounding more ambitious with each update we get, and certainly seems to be casting a very wide net. There are primarily three things that I think are really driving my growing excitement for the game. First is going to be the beauty of the game. It's just gorgeous from what we've seen. The effects from spells and attacks look great. The weather looks impressive. The landscapes look phenomenal, especially the multi-layered dungeon. It looks like a world I just want to explore and experience, if my computer can handle it. Number two, combat looks fun and exciting. While I personally have a vendetta against weapon swapping, that's largely due to over-reliance on it in games where I struggle to enjoy the combat at all. Games like, honestly, Elder Scrolls Online. My excitement here could quickly turn to ire the moment I step into the game, but at least for now, it looks like fun. Watching the effects gave me the same kind of vibes I got when I saw the very first Guild Wars 2 announcement video, where I was just like, oh shit, they can do that stuff in an MMO now? And finally, perhaps the biggest thing is weather. This is the big selling point to me and what's convinced me to give the game a try, just to see how it works out. How impactful will the weather be? How frequent and how much will it alter things? I want to experience how weather will affect different combat styles, both positively and negatively, and how that will make the world feel alive. But with all that positivity, you might be wondering why I said at the outset that this could be Throne and Liberty's year to lose. Well, it comes down to one word. One big word that can honestly doom an MMO no matter how good the quality is. Monetization. Going back to May of 2022, NCSoft has promised what they call fair monetization and no pay to win for Throne and Liberty. In an official earnings report, battle passes were alluded to as a way to conduct a sort of partial pay model for the game, while explicitly avoiding any kind of pay to win model. It's pretty obvious that games need to make money, that's kind of a given. But in recent years, the specter of pay to win has raised its head many times, and until we actually see the plans materialize for this, I think it's fair for MMO players to be cautious. We've been burned many times with games willing to push the boundary of what is acceptable monetization, but perhaps with that incredibly long development time and the separate iterations this game has gone through, it may have too much riding on it to risk souring the public, at least at release. Throne and Liberty isn't the only MMO that will be launching in 2023 though, and if you want to see the games and testing phases that I am most expecting to launch in what will probably be a bit of a lean year for MMOs, why not take a look at this video here? I tried to kind of pull out some of the fluff so you don't have to worry about games that are most likely not going to launch until 2025 or 2026. My name is Redbeard Flynn. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.